Hello. Happy Monday. How's everyone doing tonight? It's, the 16th? Halfway through the month? Give a few minutes for people to make their way on in. I see one username I don't recognize. Ice Wizards, Ice Wizards. Parmos is having a tough time. Dog licked your glasses. Oh, hey, Sharkies. Just heard Wizards. I was just saying that there was a username in the chat that I didn't recognize. I was worried you guys weren't going to show up because I didn't post a notice on Facebook today. I'm glad you're here. How was your weekend? For maybe the start of Mirkwood. Well, when we left off, we were halfway, well, a little bit over halfway through the previous chapter. Played some D&D. Oh, that's exciting. Mia lost another tooth. That's also exciting. I mean, I hope that's exciting. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. Is it lost? Do you know where it is? Are you guys all playing D&D together? Are you playing with some friends? Who's running the game? Who's playing what? Hope I'm not asking too many questions. What's inflation on a tooth these days? Erica's here. It doesn't always show me like everyone that's actually in the chat. Even if I refresh it like right now, it's not showing me like the Sharkies and Erica being in the chat right now, which is weird. If I go over to this side. Yeah, I wonder why that is. The assumed tradition of sending the tooth away, off with the Fey folk. So yeah, well, we pretty much left off right after I made another attempt at one of the songs from The Hobbit. Been playing with theater friends. Running this campaign for about 3 years. Wow, almost done. That's exciting. What level is everybody getting to? Yeah, I haven't been in many games that have lasted that long. I've been in a couple. But even those, I feel like, were run pretty infrequently. I guess the last uh, game I played, yeah, some of them were pretty infrequent. Level 8, that's a fun. I like that stretch of levels. I think generally between like 7 or 8 to like 12 or 13 is sort of uh, the power level that I enjoy um, a lot, just because you get the magic users are starting to actually like feel like they're pretty powerful, but they're not completely leaving behind the martial classes, the fighters and paladins and whatnot. Um, so I find that area is like nicely balanced, and there's a lot of fun stuff you can do there. And running the game, you don't quite have to worry about getting completely steamrolled by players all the time. So it was picking up a game that had been played in Pathfinder. I played a lot of 3.5, and then I was excited by Pathfinder, but never really got into a game of it. And then I really do like 5th edition a lot. Pathfinder was your first? Nice. I am getting the itch to want to get back into a D&D game, either playing in or running a game. Had one that was sort of in the works, but has sort of fallen apart. Now I'm thinking of trying to restart an old game. We'll see how that goes. It's tricky. Not everybody is all in the same place, and I do find there's a certain magic to actually sitting in the same room with people and playing around a table, but who knows? Maybe we'll need to work out some internet arrangements. I don't know whether that'll work for everyone or not. So yeah, the chapter we have been reading, Chapter 7, Queer Lodgings, heavily featuring Beorn, the skin changer, not the furrier. Don't make that mistake. Done over Messenger, then. A mix of both in game and over the internet. We had done something similar for a while back. There was a period of time where one of the players in one of the games we were playing had to go traveling for work, and so we just kept them in the game with a webcam. It worked out, yeah, all right. Better than you expected. That's good. Oh, are you stuttering? I haven't seen it on my end. Hmm. Maybe you just need to refresh. Hopefully that's all it is. I don't know. I'm not picking up anything on my side, but I can just kind of see what's happening. I don't have the audio going, of course, because that would be a mess. Hmm. Anyways, chapter recap. Queer Lodgings. Gandalf told his introduction to Beorn's his introduction story to Beorn to get all of the dwarves, and Bilbo into safe lodgings. That was entertaining, I think. And everyone more or less got welcomed in, and they had a nice dinner and were told not to go outside at night, which seemed like they all complied with. Um, we finished off with a little bit of a dwarven song. Let's see, what else? I think that's basically where we were at. All right. So exactly where we left off was Bilbo woke up in the middle of the night and heard some sounds while everyone else was asleep. Uh-huh. And Bilbo was a little spooked, worried about whether a bear was going to come in and maul everybody, but he dove back under his blankets and hid his head and fell asleep again at last in spite of his fears. And that's where we're at. So it's I think it's about time to get started with continuing this chapter. Oh, you know what? I actually just saw a little stuttering on my end here. Are the Sharkies getting stuttering through? Because I just saw the picture skip a little bit on this side. I don't know if that's something I'm going to need to fix. Well, I guess I'll just start going, and if it turns out to be a real problem, I don't know, maybe I'll have to restart the stream. Sharkies aren't noticing? Okay. Alright, well, it was full morning when he awoke. One of the dwarves had fallen over him in the shadows where he lay, and had rolled down with a bump from the platform onto the floor. It was Boffer, and he was grumbling about it when Bilbo opened his eyes. "Get up, lazy bones," he said, "or there will be no breakfast left for you." Up jumped Bilbo. "Breakfast?" he cried. "Where's breakfast?" "Mostly inside us," answered the other dwarves, who were moving about the hall. "But what is left is out on the veranda. We have been about looking for Beorn ever since the sun got up, but there's no sign of him anywhere, though we found breakfast laid as soon as we went out." "Where's Gandalf?" asked Bilbo, moving off to find something to eat as quick as he could. "Oh, out and about somewhere," they told him. But he saw no sign of the wizard all that day until the evening. Just before sunset, he walked into the hall where the Hobbit and the dwarves were having supper, waited on by Beorn's wonderful animals, as they had been all day. Of Beorn they had seen and heard nothing since the night before, and they were getting puzzled. "Where is our host? And where have you been all day yourself?" they all cried. "One question at a time, and none till after supper. I haven't had a bite since breakfast." Not just the Sharkies having supper. At last, Gandalf pushed away his plate and jug. He had eaten 2 whole loaves, with masses of butter and honey and clotted cream, and drunk at least a quart of mead, and he took out his pipe. "I will answer the second question first," he said. "But bless me, this is a splendid place for smoke rings." Indeed, for a long time they could get nothing more out of him. He was so busy sending smoke rings dodging round the pillars of the hall, changing them into all sorts of different shapes and colors, and setting them at last, chasing one another, out of the hole in the roof. They must have looked very queer from outside, popping out into the air one after another. Green, blue, red, silver gray, yellow, white. Big ones, little ones dodging through big ones and joining into figure eights, and going off like a flock of birds into the distance. "I have been out picking out bear tracks," he said at last. "There must have been a regular bears' meeting outside here last night. I soon saw that Beorn could not have made them all. There were far too many of them, and they were of various sizes, too. I should say there were little bears, large bears, ordinary bears, and gigantic big bears, all dancing outside from dark to nearly dawn. They came from almost every direction, except from west over the river, from the mountains. In that direction only one set of footprints led, none coming, only ones going away from there. I followed these as far as the Carrick. There they disappeared into the river, but the water was too deep and strong beyond the rock for me to cross. It is easy enough, as you remember, to get from this bank to the Carrick by the ford, but on the other side is a cliff standing up from a swirling channel. I had to walk miles before I found a place where the river was wide and shallow enough for me to wade and swim, and then miles back again to pick up the tracks again. By that time it was too late for me to follow them far. They went straight off in the direction of the pine woods on the east side of the Misty Mountains, where we had our pleasant little party with the wargs the night before last. And now I think I have answered your first question, too," ended Gandalf, and he sat a long while silent. Bilbo thought he knew what the wizard meant. "What shall we do?" he cried. "If he leads all the wargs and the goblins down here? We shall all be caught and killed. I thought you said he was not a friend of theirs." "So I did. And don't be silly. You had better go to bed. Your wits are sleepy." Yeah, more mead, honey food. Gandalf showing off. The Hobbit felt quite crushed, and as there seemed nothing else to do, he did go to bed, and while the dwarves were still singing songs, he dropped asleep, still puzzling his little head about Beorn, till he dreamed a dream of hundreds of black bears dancing slow, heavy dances, round and round in the moonlight in the courtyard. Then he woke up when everyone else was asleep, and he heard the same scraping, scuffling, snuffling, and growling as before. The Sharkies wonder if Bilbo, since this story is written by him, thought of the 2 pieces of bread as loaves. They may have been dinner rolls to Gandalf. I don't know. I don't know that Bilbo necessarily looks at food in particular as being a different size as everyone else. Next morning, they were all awakened by Beorn himself. Let's see. Beorn was a deep voice. Let's see if I can remember it. "So, here you are, all are still," he said. He picked up the Hobbit and laughed. "Not eaten up by wargs or goblins or wicked bears yet, I see." And he poked Mr. Baggin's waistcoat most disrespectfully. "Little Bunny is getting nice and fat again on bread and honey," he chuckled. "Come and have some more." So they all went to breakfast with him. Beorn was most jolly for a change. Indeed, he seemed to be in a splendidly good humor, and set them all laughing with his funny stories. Nor did they have to wonder long where he had been or why he was so nice to them, for he told them himself. He had been over the river and right back up into the mountains, from which you can guess that he could travel quickly, in bear shape at any rate. From the burnt wolf glade, he had soon found out that part of their story was true. But he had found more than that. He had caught a warg and a goblin wandering in the woods. From these he had got news. The goblin patrols were still hunting with wargs for the dwarves, and they were fiercely angry because of the death of the great goblin, and also because of the burning of the chief wolf's nose and the death from the wizard's fire of many of his chief servants. So much they told him when he forced them, but he guessed there was more wickedness than this afoot, and that a great raid of the whole goblin army with their wolf allies into the lands shadowed by the mountains might soon be made to find the dwarves, or to take vengeance on the men and creatures that lived there, and who they thought must be sheltering them. "It was a good story, that of yours," said Beorn, "but I like it still better, now I am sure it is true. You must forgive my not taking your word. If you lived near the edge of Mirkwood, you would take the word of no one that you did not know as well as your brother, or better. As it is, I can only say that I have hurried home as fast as I could to see that you are safe, and to offer you any help that I can. I shall think more kindly of dwarves after this. Killed the great goblin! Killed the great goblin!" He chuckled fiercely to himself. "What did you do with the goblin and the warg?" asked Bilbo suddenly. "Come and see," said Beorn, and they followed round the house. A goblin's head was stuck outside the gate, and a warg skin was nailed to a tree just beyond. Yeesh, little Grizzly. Beorn was a fierce enemy, but now he was their friend, and Gandalf thought it wise to tell him their whole story and the reason of their journey, so that they could get the most help he could offer. This is what he promised to do for them. He would provide ponies for each of them, and a horse for Gandalf, for their journey to the forest, and he would lade them with food to last them for weeks with care, and packed so as to be as easy as possible to carry. Nuts, flour, sealed jars of dried fruits, and red earthenware pots of honey, and twice-baked cakes that would keep a good long time, and on a little of which they could march far. The making of these was one of his secrets, but honey was in them, as in most of his foods, and they were good to eat, though they made one thirsty. Water, he said, they would not need to carry this side of the forest, for there were streams and springs along the road. "But your way through Mirkwood is dark, dangerous, and difficult," he said. "Water is not easy to find there, nor food. The time is not yet come for nuts, though it may be past and gone indeed before you get to the other side. And nuts are about all that grows there fit for food. In there the wild things are dark, queer, and savage. I will provide you with skins for carrying water, and I will give you some bows and arrows, but I doubt very much whether anything you find in Mirkwood will be wholesome to eat or to drink. There is one stream there I know, black and strong, which crosses the path. That you should neither drink of nor bathe in, for I have heard that it carries enchantment and a great drowsiness and forgetfulness. And in the dim shadows of that place I don't think you will shoot anything, wholesome or unwholesome, without straying from the path. That you must not do for any reason." Yeah, Grizzly. Just a little Grizzly. I said it and then I was like, oh, yep, someone's gonna catch that. "That is all the advice I can give you. Beyond the edge of the forest I cannot help you much. You must depend on your luck and your courage and the food I send with you. At the gate of the forest I must ask you to send back my horse and my ponies. But I wish you all speed, and my house is open to you if ever you come back this way again." You think Puppy is looking for me? Not that hard to find. Minimic! Hey, Puppy. Hello. Wag, wag, wag. Wag, wag, wag. They thanked him, of course, with many bows and sweepings of their hoods, and with many an "At your service, O master of the wide wooden halls." But their spirits sank at his grave words, and they all felt that the adventure was far more dangerous than they had thought, while all the time, even if they passed all the perils of the road, The dragon was waiting at the end. All that morning they were busy with preparations. Soon after midday they ate with Beorn for the last time, and after the meal they mounted the steeds he was lending them, and bidding him many farewells, they rode off through his gate at a good pace. As soon as they left his high hedges at the east of his fenced lands, they turned north and then bore to the northwest. By his advice, they were no longer making for the main forest road to the south of his land. Had they followed the pass, their path would have led them down a stream from the mountains that joined the great river miles south of the Carrick. At that point there was a deep ford which they might have passed if they had still had their ponies, and beyond that a track led to the skirts of the wood and to the entrance of the old forest road. But Beorn had warned them that that way was now often used by the goblins, while the forest road itself, he had heard, was overgrown and disused at the eastern end, and led to impassable marshes, where the paths had long been lost. Its eastern opening had also always been far to the south of the lonely mountain, and would have left them still with a long and difficult northward march when they got to the other side. North of the Carrick, the edge of Mirkwood drew closer to the borders of the great river, and though here the mountains too drew down nearer, Beorn advised them to take this way, for at a place a few days' ride due north of the Carrick was the gate of a little-known pathway through Mirkwood that led almost straight towards the lonely mountain. "The goblins," Beorn had said, "will not dare to cross the great river for 100 miles north of the Carrick, nor to come near my house. It is well protected at night. But I should ride fast, for if they make their raid soon, they will cross the river to the south, and scour all the edge of the forest so as to cut you off, and wargs run swifter than ponies. Still, you are safer going north, even though you seem to be going back nearer to their strongholds, for that is what they will least expect, and they will have the longer ride to catch you. Be off now, as quick as you may." That is why they were now riding in silence, galloping wherever the ground was grassy and smooth, with the mountains dark on their left, and in the distance the line of the river with its trees drawing ever closer. The sun had only just turned west when they started, and till evening it lay golden on the land about them. It was difficult to think of pursuing goblins behind, and when they had put many miles between them and Beorn's house, they began to talk and to sing again, and to forget the dark forest path that lay in front. But in the evening, when the dusk came on, and the peaks of the mountains glowered against the sunset, they made a camp and set a guard, and most of them slept uneasily, with dreams in which there came the howl of hunting wolves and the cries of goblins. Still, the next morning dawned bright and fair again. There was an autumn-like mist white upon the ground, and the air was chill, but soon the sun rose red in the east, and the mists vanished, and while the shadows were still long, they were off again. So they rode now for 2 more days, and all the while they saw nothing save grass and flowers and birds and scattered trees, and occasionally small herds of red deer, browsing or sitting at noon in the shade. Sometimes Bilbo saw the horns of the harts sticking up from the long grass, and at first he thought they were the dead branches of trees. That third evening they were so eager to press on, for Beorn had said that they should reach the forest gate early on the 4th day, that they rode still forward after dusk and into the night beneath the moon. As the light faded, Bilbo thought he saw away to the right, or to the left, the shadowy form of a great bear prowling along in the same direction. But if he dared to mention it to Gandalf, the wizard only said, "Hush! Take no notice." Next day they started before dawn, though their night had been short. As soon as it was light, they could see the forest coming, as it were, to meet them, or waiting for them like a black and frowning wall before them. The land began to slope up, and it seemed to the Hobbit that a silence began to draw in upon them. Birds began to sing less. There were no more deer, nor not even rabbits were to be seen. By the afternoon, they had reached the eaves of Mirkwood, and were resting almost beneath the great overhanging boughs of its outer trees. Their trunks were huge and gnarled, their branches twisted, their leaves were dark and long. Ivy grew on them and trailed along the ground. I think I need to change the lighting just a little bit. Because we're no longer in the warm hearth of Beorn's abode. We're getting into a little more of a spooky Mirkwood, right? Let's get a little more green lighting. Hopefully it doesn't just make me look washed out. There. That's a little more Mirkwoody, right? Although it makes the pages, I don't know how well that's coming across because it's light from the monitor, but it makes the page very green to look at. Very spooky forest.
Well, here is Mirkwood, said Gandalf, the greatest of the forests of the northern world. I hope you like the look of it. Now you must send back these excellent ponies you have borrowed.
The dwarves were inclined to grumble at this, but the wizard told them they were fools.
Beorn is not as far off as you seem to think, and you had better keep your promises anyway, for he is a bad enemy. Mr. Baggins's eyes are sharper than yours, if you have not seen each night after dark a great bear going along with us or sitting far off in the moon watching our camps. Not only to guard you and guide you, but to keep on an eye on the ponies too. Beorn may be your friend, but loves his animals as his children. You do not guess what kindness he has shown you in letting dwarves ride them so far and so fast, nor what would happen to you if you tried to take them into the forest.
What about the horse, then? Said Thorin. You don't mention sending that back.
I don't, because I am not sending it.
What about your promise, then?
I will look after that. I am not sending the horse back. I am riding it.
Then they knew that Gandalf was going to leave them at the very edge of Mirkwood, and they were in despair. But nothing they could say would change his mind.
Now, we had this all out before, when we landed on the Carrack, he said. It is no use arguing. I have, as I told you, some pressing business away south, and I am already late through bothering with you people. We may meet again before all is over, and then again, of course, we may not. That depends on your luck and on your courage and sense. And I am sending Mr. Baggins with you. I have told you before that he has more about him than you guess, and you will find that out before long. So cheer up, Bilbo, and don't look so glum. Cheer up, Thorin and company. This is your expedition, after all. Think of the treasure at the end, and forget the forest and the dragon, at any rate until tomorrow morning.
When tomorrow morning came, he still said the same. So now there was nothing left to do but to fill their water skins at a clear spring they found close to the forest gate, and unpack the ponies. They distributed the packages as fairly as they could, though Bilbo thought his lot was wearisomely heavy, and did not at all like the idea of trudging for miles and miles with all that on his back. "Don't you worry," said Thorin. "It will get lighter all too soon. Before long I expect we shall all wish our packs heavier when the food begins to run short." Then at last they said goodbyes to their ponies and turned their heads for home. Off they trotted gaily, seeming very glad to put their tails towards the shadow of Mirkwood. As they went away, Bilbo could have sworn that a thing like a bear left the shadow of the trees and shambled off quickly after them. Now Gandalf too said farewell. Bilbo sat on the ground, feeling very unhappy, and wishing he was beside the wizard on his tall horse. He had gone just inside the forest after breakfast, a very poor one,
and it had seemed as dark in there in the morning as at night, and very secret. A sort of watching and waiting feeling, he said to himself. "Goodbye," said Gandalf to Thorin, "and goodbye to you all. Goodbye. Straight through the forest is your way now. Don't stray off the track. If you do, it is 1,000 to 1 you will never find it again and never get out of Mirkwood. And then I don't suppose I, or anyone else, will ever see you again." "Do we really have to go through?" groaned the hobbit. "Yes, you do," said the wizard. "If you want to get to the other side, you must either go through or give up your quest. And I am not going to allow you to back out now, Mr. Baggins. I am ashamed of you for thinking it. You have got to look after all these dwarves for me," he laughed. "No, no," said Bilbo. "I didn't mean that. I meant, is there no way round?" "There is, if you care to go 200 miles or so out of your way north, and twice that south. But you wouldn't get a safe path even then. There are no safe paths in this part of the world. Remember, you are over the edge of the wild now, and in for all sorts of fun wherever you go. Before you could get round Mirkwood in the north, you would be right among the slopes of the Grey Mountains, and they are simply stiff with goblins, hobgoblins, and orcs of the worst description. Before you could get round it in the south, you would get into the land of the Necromancer. And even you, Bilbo, won't need me to tell you tales of that black sorcerer. I don't advise you to go anywhere near the places overlooked by his dark tower. Stick to the forest track, keep your spirits up, hope for the best, and with a tremendous slice of luck you may come out one day and see the long marshes lying below you, and beyond them, high in the east, the lonely mountain where dear old Smaug lives, though I hope he is not expecting you." "Very comforting you are, to be sure," growled Thorin. "Goodbye. If you won't come with us, you had better get off without any more talk." "Goodbye, then, and really goodbye," said Gandalf, and he turned his horse and rode down into the west. But he could not resist the temptation to have the last word. Before he had passed, quite out of hearing, he turned and put his hands to his mouth and called to them. They heard his voice come faintly. "Goodbye. Be good. Take care of yourselves. And don't leave the path." Then he galloped away and was soon lost to sight. "Oh, goodbye and go away," grunted the dwarves, all the more angry because they were really filled with dismay at losing him. Now began the most dangerous part of all the journey. They each shouldered the heavy pack and the water-skin which was their share, and turned from the light that lay on the lands outside, and plunged into the forest. And that's the end of Chapter 7. What's everybody saying here? Beorn's following us, but he doesn't want you to know he cares, so don't say anything. Very spooky forest. Don't break your promise to the scary bear man, yeah. You feel like you wouldn't trust the dwarves much, wanted to leave Bilbo, wanted to keep the ponies. That's cheerful. Dear old Smaug, Dear old Smaug. Goodbye. If you're lucky, you'll live to be killed by a dragon. What time is it now? 7:40? I think maybe we'll keep it to a little bit of a shorter stream tonight. What do you guys think? And pick up next Friday with flies and spiders. If I can focus that. Yeah. Well, even if it doesn't focus very well, I think you can get the impression of what's going on there. We've got webs and some kind of skull. A little grim. It's nice ending on a chapter and you are tired, so take a nap. And Zen fires the missiles. Are you tired? Long day? Long weekend? I'm also actually pretty tired. I slept
poorly last night, unfortunately. So, I'm a little sleepy myself. And I haven't had supper yet. The dwarves wanting to keep the ponies foreshadows their entitlement. Think so? I mean, today, but it's your last day before vacation. Woo! Alright, so that means that you are now officially on vacation? That's nice. We'll have to do something to celebrate at some point. We are gonna order some pho for supper tonight because we're both pretty tired and I don't think either of us is really up to cooking, so we're gonna get some nice hot soup. Especially since it was a little cooler here today. It was only like 21 degrees and it was raining a lot of the day. Yeah, everybody thinks that's tasty sounding. I think this is the first time it's rained during the day for a while here. Last week it rained a few times overnight, but today was raining through most of the day, which is good. I'm sure all the plants are going to be very happy about it. Most of the morning. Yeah, I guess it wasn't raining all day, but it rained for a bit of the morning and early afternoon. Enough that it's still damp outside. So yeah, next chapter we get into the Mirkwood, and that's going to be spooky, but there are some very good moments in there that I'm looking forward to, and Bilbo has some good moments to show his stuff when they're in the Mirkwood, I believe. So yeah, we'll get to some of that in the next chapter. Left Beorn behind. I don't think he really comes up in Lord of the Rings that I can remember. I'm not sure if he has really any other appearances, so this might be just about the last we've seen of him. First time Gandalf has actually told them he was leaving. Yeah, and Gandalf's behavior has been kind of interesting in the last few chapters. I feel, in the last chapter at least, where sometimes he doesn't seem to want to talk very much, but once he gets going, he kind of seems to go on and on. And he definitely only talks about what he wants to talk about, the information he wants to share. Well, Gandalf definitely has business to attend to, it seems. He's got his finger in more than just the one pie. He likes to monologue, yeah. Yeah, he definitely is all right with hearing the sound of his own voice. And it sounds like in this chapter he also told Beorn their whole story of their plan to journey to the Lonely Mountain, though we didn't get the full extent of that, but that's probably all right. Well, yeah, putting your finger in pies is rude, and it seems like maybe Gandalf is... To be fair, I would imagine that that's saying having your finger in multiple pies. What do you think that means? Because I kind of guessed that maybe it has to do with making the pies. You know, you kind of have to have your finger in pies in the process of making them. If that's not what it's about, then yeah, it's pretty rude if you're going around tasting pies like that. I don't think... that might be it. I mean, maybe it's more about just being greedy, claiming pies by sticking your finger in it. I don't know. But yeah, that's... What else happened in this chapter? So we had all sorts of bears. Apparently, Beorn, in his skin-changing ways, has lots of bear buddies as well. And they all come have bear parties outside his place at night. Little ones and big ones and really, really big ones. Yeah, interesting that everyone knows about the Necromancer. Yeah, it does seem like the Necromancer is... what's the word I'm looking for? Infamous, I guess. no one bothers to do anything about him. Well, I don't know if that's exactly the case. It kind of sounds like when Gandalf mentioned it before, at the beginning, the first time we heard about the Necromancer, and the dwarves were talking about the Necromancer. Gandalf said that even if they gathered up all of the dwarves, they wouldn't be able to compare in power to the Necromancer. Yeah, they just give him a wide berth. Yeah, it kind of sounds like he just sounds too scary. I mean, bear in mind the name, right? The Necromancer. That means that probably if you want to go deal with the Necromancer, you're not just dealing with the Necromancer, because I think by nature, what a Necromancer does is they summon up ghouls and skeletons and zombies and goblins, or not goblins, but all kinds of nasty shades and spirits and things like that. So, yeah, undead armies, basically. So honestly, it kind of sounds like it's probably a good thing that the Necromancer apparently confines himself to the area around his tower. Also sounds like the kind of thing where there might be more stories about him than are true. Yeah, well, I think when you get to a certain level of power in this world, that probably becomes the case. But that said, this was Gandalf telling them that they are better off avoiding the Necromancer, and I think Gandalf would be the one to know the most of it. And yeah, what Gandalf was saying about having other business very well could be tied up with dealing with the Necromancer. I'm pretty sure I remember some details about who and what the Necromancer is. Mostly based off of information from like the Silmarillion, but I'm not confident enough in my memory of those details to go too much into it. But from what I remember, they also do a bit of the Necromancer story in the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies. And I think they kind of tie that in with the Lord of the Rings a little bit. But again, my memory of that, I need to rewatch that stuff so I can't say for certain. But I do believe that the Necromancer is a certain character that comes up, is an alias of a certain character that comes up in the Lord of the Rings. I'm just not 100% certain about that, so I don't want to say that for sure. But yeah, they got assistance in getting to the Mirkwood, and they've got food and some supplies and skins for water, although they were warned not to drink of the black stream inside the Mirkwood. Unfortunately, they had to send the ponies back. So that's where we're going to leave off for tonight, and we will pick up on Friday. Reminder that we're not doing Wednesdays at the moment. So on Friday, we will get into the Mirkwood and find out what kind of spookiness lies within. So I hope everyone... Erica wanted to drink from the black stream. No, don't do it. It's bad. Hope everyone has a good week. And get through all right through Friday, and we'll reconvene and pick up with a spooky chapter. And I don't know. I hope none of you are arachnophobic, at least not too severely. I will not show you any pictures of spiders unless somebody sends in some fan art, in which case I'll give plenty of warning before I show the spiders. Spooky. All right. Well, have a good Monday night, everybody. Hope everyone has a good sleep tonight. I hope I have a better sleep tonight. And I'll see you all on Friday. Good night.